Carroll bringing it forward. Thompson's making the run. Carroll hangs on to it though. Still Davy Carroll. Could go all the way here. Oh, what a goal!
Hello, I'm Phil Catchpole and welcome to episode 29 of Ringing the Blues. On this week's show we have an interview with former Chairboy Jason McCarthy and, don't know if you've heard, but football is back. So I've had a chat with fans from all of our playoff rivals. But first, let's check in with Uri over in Mexico City.
We are ringing the blues from Mexico City. I am glad to be back. Mi nombre es Uri, and I'm happy to tell you that Wycombe will play Fleetwood Town in the playoff semi-final. Two-legged semi. If they win, then the final is at Wembley. No fans though. Oh, we are sad because of that. And Chairboys Spanish this time. Let me tell you something. My name is Barry Fry. Mi nombre es Barry Fry. This is the worst day of my life. Este es el peor día de mi vida. Peterborough United have been cheated out of a place in the playoffs. A Peter United le quitaron un lugar tramposamente de los playoffs. It's a disgrace. ¡Qué desgracia! Well, Chairboys Spanish this week. Sorry, Peterborough United will be playing against Fleetwood Town. And I have to tell you something extra. Today, on the 22nd of June, the day I'm recording this, 34 years ago, in my country, in the World Cup 86 in Mexico, you know, at the Estadio Azteca, it was such a very special day because Diego Armando Maradona scored two magical goals. Well, the first one, you know, it was with the help of the hand of God, and the second, it was marvelous. Gary Lineker scored for England, and, you know, the rest is history. So that was 34 years ago, in a day like this, at 22nd of June, 1986. So, goodbye for now, and I'm so happy, so feliz de estar aquí, to be back with here amigos from Ringing the Blues, back to London, to the Ringing the Blues studios with my amigo, Phil Catchpole.
Many thanks, Uri. Now, Jason McCarthy is a player that is loved at Adams Park. It was heartbreaking to hear that his loan spell was being cut short for financial reasons, and I spoke to Jason the other day, and I started off our interview by asking him if he was gutted to be missing out on the playoffs.
Yeah, of course. I am gutted. I would have absolutely loved the playoffs. Of course, it's like a once or two or three times this can happen in your career, you know, potentially. And I'm gutted I'm not going to be involved, and especially because it's Wycombe. You know, Wycombe, the club I've had sort of struck with in my career. You know, I absolutely love the club, love everyone in it. And, you know, to potentially have the chance to be involved with promotion with them to the championship is the whole reason why I came back, and the whole reason why I forced this move in January to come back. I'm absolutely gutted I'm not going to be a part of it, but, you know, the world is a lot bigger than, you know, me returning on loan. I'm just, you know, really, really rooting for the club now. I want the club to go up. I think it would be absolutely amazing, and I think the club deserve it. You know, I saw something the other day about, you know, they've been the club that have been the longest in the top two. I think it is top two or top three within League One this season. So, you know, a lot of people have been saying Wycombe have nicked it being in the playoffs, but actually fully deserve it, and I hope it ends in promotion now. I'm trying to get Kelly, the club secretary, to wheel me into the second day, try and sneak me in the back door. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Psychologically, Jason, footballers, before COVID, there was always injuries and suspensions and missing games. There was always that risk as a footballer. But this is a completely bizarre situation. We've never had this before in our lifetime. Mentally, as a footballer, how do you kind of come into a group halfway through a season? Obviously, a bit easier for you because you knew the team. You kind of get into the cause and then all of a sudden have that taken away from you when you're physically fit and raring to go. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, look, I think it's been. It's been in terms of COVID-19. I'm sure a lot of people have struggled more than others. I mean, having my son around me and my wife has been an absolute blessing. Um, and my faith really gets me through like times like this. So I really lean on that. But of course, I would have loved to have sort of, like you said, come in here in January and knowing that it was going to be part of something really exciting and special. Now to sort of be chopped away at the last minute, it is tough. But I understand that from Wycombe's perspective, the club have done everything possible to try and keep me there, and have done. I'm just so thankful for the gaffer and for the chairman and the board for actually making it possible to bring me back in the first place financially, and then to have continued to during lockdown to continue to sort of supply for me financially, and my wages was so I really admired that from Wycombe's perspective. And I think they couldn't have possibly done more. So look, sometimes things are out of your control. And I think this is just one of them situations, or maybe it was a victim of circumstances and of everything that's going on with the world right now and how that's having an effect on finances. So, you know, sometimes things are out of your control and you just have to accept that.
How was it being a player at Wycombe when the game was under suspension? Gareth Ainsworth has done many podcasts and interviews saying that he was keeping an eye on everyone and keeping track of fitness. I mean, how does that work? What's the nuts and bolts of that? How is that possible?
Well, first of all, Gaffer was unbelievable. He was calling me and all the other boys, I'm sure, like every couple of days, just checking that me and my family were well. And same with Dobbo. It was unbelievable, and I'm sure there wouldn't have been, many other clubs in the country's managers doing that. And in terms of fitness stuff, Dave Waits was sort of just keeping tabs and making sure we were speaking to us individually, asking us what we were doing, whether we need to step it up or, in my case, calm down. I was trying to do the 10-kilometer world record, I think, one week. So yeah, it was always keeping tabs on us and stuff. So couldn't fault it really from their perspective.
And now you've gone back to Millwall. The Championship is going to be played to its conclusion, all being well. What's your situation with Millwall? Are you allowed to play for them again?
The club have currently furloughed me, so I'm not training with Millwall. I'm not sure whether I would have been applicable to play the games anyway. But no, currently spending more time with my family at home with Zara and with George, which I'm really enjoying, and I'm staying fit, keeping myself ready for the summer and whatever that may hold.
So with Millwall, then they get through this season. I'm guessing, like any other football club in the current financial situation, they're keeping their squad as trim, for financial reasons. I'm guessing they've not really communicated with you what comes next in terms of next season.
No, not really. I haven't heard anything from their perspective. Like you said, circumstances are very tight now. I guess that plays into every player. So, look, I wish them the best for the rest of the season, of course. And I've sent my regards to the players. So I'm hoping that they finish the season strongly, as Wycombe do. And I'll keep myself ready, fit, and I'm ready for whatever the next season will bring. And yeah, I guess we'll cross that bridge when the season's completed in the Championship, and the same with League One, I guess.
It's always a tough time, isn't it, for footballers with contracts and their positions at clubs and etc. But this has just added an entire new world onto uncertainty. And you've been around the game long enough now to see how it affects dressing rooms and players. There's a lot of pain to come, isn't there, I think, from right away from the Premier League into non-league, isn't there?
No, 100%. And, I really, really feel for those players who are out of contract this summer, and will probably go months without pay, which is difficult because a lot of them players will have families, will have children, and they need to put food on the table. So, no, I really, really feel for that. And the football world is so unpredictable, and there needs to be some kind of fallback for players when they have to go through experiences like this. I mean, like you said, everyone says this is unprecedented, but a lot of players have to go through this sort of situation every summer. So I think there definitely needs to be a support system financially, sort of from the Premier League or FA or PFA or something, where players who are out of contract need that backing and financial support. But definitely, I know I've got a friend who's just got promoted and has had a great season, and he's been offered a worse contract in a better league just because of the situation. So yeah, times are definitely tough in football, and every club is going to hurt through this, like you said, from top to bottom.
Yeah, we shall have to see what plays out in the coming months. But let's get back to talking about football, because Wycombe have got a couple of massive games now coming up against Fleetwood Town. You weren't there for the away game in the league where Wycombe drew 1-1 up at Fleetwood, but you were at Adams Park for the recent game, or recent-ish game. Feels like a long time ago now, but not that many games ago, where Wycombe lost to 10-man Fleetwood. It's going to be a tough test, isn't it? They're a very solid team.
Yeah, they're good. They're good. Fleetwood are a good side. They got some good players. Sutar at the back is very good. He's a big centre back, a very good player. And they got Whelan in midfield and Coots, who've got tons of experience at higher levels than this as well. Barry Mackay is very good. I played against him on the night. He was decent. Probably the best player I played against of my short spell back at Wycombe this time round. But I also played against him when he was at Forest. He's a very good player. Very good player. And then, of course, you've got Paddy Madden, Ched Evans up front, who just need one chance and they'll find the net at this level. But yeah, it's going to be a tough game, but I'm so confident the boys will progress through this, definitely.
You'll know about this because you've been in the middle of it. The mental strength and togetherness of the team is a real key, and that's been building now over many seasons under Gareth and Dobbo. How important is that going to be in these two games?
It is paramount, and I think, especially with everything that's happened and the fact that there's going to be no fans, you're going to need to draw on that more and more in these couple of games, and because it will sort of strip everything back, and you'll really see with what's within. And I think it's testament to the club how they reacted in the time of where all that hubbub was going on with League One, and everyone was waiting for a decision, and you were really sort of seeing the true colours from some clubs. Whereas Wycombe just stayed quiet and was professional and handled themselves brilliant throughout. And it just epitomises the club, epitomises the dressing room, and like you said, what Gaffer and Dobbo have built. And I really believe that will shine through in the playoffs. And when there is, because there'll be difficult moments in both games, whether we'll be ahead or not, there'll be key moments. And I'm just hoping that the club's togetherness and quality, because a lot of people can sort of come away from that because the togetherness and the camaraderie of the squad is so good. But I'm hoping that will shine through in the key moments in the two legs.
It's over 100 days between Wycombe's last game and when they went back to training once everything had been sorted out with what was going on with the positions and the playoffs, etc. It's longer than a normal summer break for players, and they're now coming back into contact training, but there's no chance of any friendlies against any other teams, and going straight into a competitive game. I mean, that in itself is unprecedented for a professional team. How's that going to work? How's it going to happen?
Yeah, look, obviously it will be a big hit, like especially to probably a lot of the older boys. Blooms and JJ won't like me for saying that will be, but it probably will be. And I know a lot of the lads, sort of will take time to hit their strides in terms of a pre-season or a season, and this, I guess, is like a mini pre-season. But I know that they're doing 11v11s and they're doing team shape and they're trying to replicate what would be a game situation. Of course, you can't um, until you're out there. It's nothing like a game until you're actually playing in it. But I know they're trying to do the best to replicate that, and I know that everyone would have been keeping themselves fit in the break. But I guess every team's in the same boat, Phil. I guess like all four teams are in the same situation, so it is an even playing field, really. And yeah, I guess that kind of evens itself out, really.
I mean, you talk about fitness. We've all been watching, Bayo obviously is on Instagram with his daily workouts, which are just exhausting to watch, basically, let alone do them. So we can see that the players are in decent shape. They've kept themselves in really good condition. But can you explain what the difference is between being incredibly fit and then having match fitness? Because it's something we hear about as fans and pundits, etc. But what does it mean by that match fitness? What is that extra percentage?
I think like a lot of general fitness and training fitness can be for like in terms of a short, sharp, I guess, sort of thing that maybe may last, I don't know, an hour, 40 minutes. But in terms of like physical contact that you will get with players, that takes its toll, and just the build up of 90 minutes, getting your body used to be able to play 90 minutes four times in 13 days or something ridiculous, and getting your body used to that creates that fitness where you're able to compete consistently for 90 minutes at a top level. I mean, that's kind of your match fitness, really. And that's only built up really with games and with time. So you can do as much much work on the training pitch as you like, and as much shape as you like, but nothing will replicate that game consistency that builds up your body for match fitness. I guess that's probably the best way to explain it.
And then, I mean, going back, it's sort of, again, attached to the mental side of it, but the concentration, you often hear players or people talking about the game saying, later on in the game when tiredness and concentration can slip as well. Is that an issue?
Definitely. I think that sort of comes into match fitness as well, in terms of, being concentrated, being switched on throughout 90 minutes. You can only really get through games. I remember when I first came to Wycombe, and that was a massive, massive part of my learning curve that season. My first season in professional football was the concentration side of things, and getting used to for 90 minutes, being switched on and knowing that at any time you could be punished for one mistake. You could play amazing for 89 minutes, switch off for the last minute, and your winger comes in at the back post and scores, and then that's what you know put on the front pages of the local newspaper the next day, that you've had a shocker and you've played well for 89 minutes. So that's all part of the game. It's that mental side and being alert, definitely.
Yeah, the fine margins of football. It's underlining that point. And then these games, obviously behind closed doors. As a player, what's it like having that crowd behind you at Adams Park? And it'll be the same for all teams as well. I mean, Pompey probably more than anybody with that amazing noise they get at Fratton Park.
Yeah.
What's it like to have the fans there? And does it affect you as a player?
Yeah, look, definitely, definitely. The first thing I thought is when I saw that it was going to be games without fans, is I just thought of 23's games. It reminded me back to when I was back at Southampton and playing in reserve games and stadiums with, I don't know, 50, 60 people there. At the time it wasn't, but now as a professional, when you get used to the crowds, like you say, playing at Fratton Parks and Adams Park, attacking that cop end, as I say, in the second half, then cheering you on, it's going to be completely different, completely different. But like I said, that's when it's stripped back and you really will see what's within a dressing room. And you're not being able to call upon the fans, I guess. I know we'll know they're on the other end of the screen watching, but it's not the same and you can't replicate it. So it's going to be very strange for the players, I'm sure. something that will definitely feel weird. I guess there'll be a kind of a more relaxed feel, I guess, and it will just take the edge off a little bit, which could play into teams' favour. I definitely think that you'll see different players coming more into their own without fans, for sure, and other players maybe a dip in form because they really draw on that aspect of the fans and that kind of pressure. So it'd definitely be an interesting watch, but football isn't the same without fans, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be weird. It's going to be weird commentating on it as well because we're there to talk about the game, but as you say, the fans of both teams make it such a big occasion. Interesting what you're saying there about some players may come to the fore with it. Is that because of the lack of pressure on the day, like immediate feedback, chance of maybe taking a risk, trying something different they perhaps wouldn't do if they've got 5,000-6,000 people there watching their every move?
Yeah, definitely. I think I've definitely been in teams where I'll see a player on the training pitch that is amazing, but I can't understand why he's not playing every week. And then within a few months, I can kind of sort of see why, and they feel like I can see them kind of playing with that the shackles on, so to speak. Like, but maybe that might come off with some players when there isn't a crowd, and you might see another level to that player. So I definitely think that can definitely play into some players' heads and their mindset. So, yeah, definitely for sure. You said there might be more of a freedom to try things they wouldn't normally try.
Well, I think I know the answer to this next one, but what do you think is going to happen against Fleetwood?
I think we'll win. I can see a draw at their place, and that's winning at home. Yeah, I'm very confident. I just think, look, I think it's a good matchup in terms of teams. I think it will be a tight affair. I don't think there'll be much in it, but I just think we have the edge. I think mentally we have the edge over two legs, and I think that I'm just confident, that it's just going to happen, fall into place. Yeah, like you said, I think you knew I'd say that, but yeah.
Yeah, I thought that might be the case, but I thought I'd better ask anyway, just in case. And in the other side of the draw, Pompey and Oxford, being a former Southampton player, I'm guessing you think Oxford might do well in that one.
I don't know, because Oxford are rivals as well, aren't they? So, I mean,
that's true.
I'm not sure. I think that will be a tight one. I think that'll be a tight one as well. But a lot of people I've spoke to this year, they've said Pompey are probably the best team they've faced, and Kenny Jackett has got a really good record at this level in terms of League One. So yeah, I think, and obviously Oxford are a very good side as well, and quite youthful, their team, and I know Carl Robinson likes to go and press and play good football. So that one, again, will be a good matchup. It's just going to be good to watch, and I think they're both on the same night, aren't they? So yeah, no, it'll be a good night to watch that. Hopefully George will have an early night and he'll give me some peace in front of the telly.
Well, Jason, it's been great to catch up and hear you in good health, etc. And I know you can hear it in your voice that you're gutted that you're not involved in these games. I know the Wycombe fans as well, gutted not to have you around at this time for the club. Possibly the biggest games in the club's history. And we'll be keeping a very close eye on the future career of Jason McCarthy, no doubt. Yeah,
definitely. That's really good to speak to you, Phil. Obviously, I hope the club go up, and who knows what will happen in the future. So, yeah, definitely. It's not a closed book yet.
So, with the excitement building for the playoff games against Fleetwood Town, here is a recap of the games we played against the Cod Army this season.
Corner of the penalty area. Does he go for goal? Crosses in. Akinfenwa. Oh, and the Beast has got his first of the season. Patterson with the assist. Was it a shot? Was it a cross? We'll call it a cross. Akinfenwa in his office doing the business once more. Fleetwood 0, Wycombe 1. Ball whipped in. Darius Charles gets up. Madden scores. Oh, and the ball skidded off the turf. Allsop couldn't hold it, and it skidded out to Paddy Madden, and the equaliser comes very late indeed. Fleetwood on the attack now with a crossfield pass towards Evans. McCarthy gets up holding his face, and then what's the ref going to do here? It's a red card! A red card for Ched Evans. He went up with McCarthy. Referee seemed to have a good sight line on it. McCarthy went down clutching his face, and the referee has sent off Ched Evans. Straight red card. McCarthy went down clutching his face immediately. The referee sort of strolled towards it, fished around in his pocket and produced a red. Back outside now to Mackay. Mackay drills it in low. That's a great ball, and Madden is onside, and that is a goal. No one's touched it. Is Madden going to claim it, or is Mackay going to take it from the ball in? Either way, Allsopp didn't know what to do, didn't know what to go with the runner or follow the flight of the ball. In the end, it's just crawled into the bottom corner, and it's 1-0 to Fleetwood.
Ooh, these are going to be tough games. To find out a bit more about the Cod Army, I phoned up Fleetwood fan Martin Crane and asked him if he's looking forward to these games as much as we all are.
Certainly am. Yeah, it's an exciting time.
Let's talk about Fleetwood's season because, you know, the form horse, really. I know Oxford were in fantastic form as well, but some of the results that Fleetwood picked up, especially between Christmas and when the season was suspended, really put you in my opinion, with a fantastic shot of going up automatically had the season played out. Is that a bit frustrating for you and Fleetwood Town fans?
Well, it's a strange feeling, isn't it? It certainly is, because we really did feel we had a good chance of going up automatically. So it's a weird situation for a club like Fleetwood to be in the playoffs and almost feel like we've lost out.
There is that. I'm guessing back last August, if someone had said playoff place, you'd have snapped the hand off?
Absolutely. And I said this the other day, if someone had offered us a playoff place against Wycombe, we'd have been like, yeah, go on then. But then I have no doubt that Wycombe would feel the same way about a playoff place against Fleetwood, so it should make a good game, shouldn't it?
It certainly does. And every fan I've spoken to of clubs that are in the playoffs have all said, well, we thought we were going to go up automatically. It's a bit frustrating. And I know the managers have said, I think all fans are now talking a bit like managers, which is good fun. But let's look about these games then. The first game is going to be at Highbury. Normally, they're cagey affairs. I watched the League Two semis last week, the first legs. They were really, really cagey. Yeah. No fans as well. That's going to have an input. And the Bundesliga has suggested the form and the results there that away sides are slightly better off. What do you reckon?
Well, yeah, it certainly appears that way, doesn't it? You know, the home crowd, the intimidating atmosphere and all the rest of it seems to be taken out of the mix, doesn't it, at the moment?
Are you going to be placing a scarecrow in the stand at Fleetwood?
I've not made one personally, no, but I believe there's a scarecrow thing going on. There's also the cardboard cutouts are being done at the moment, so there should be a few faces around, if not so much noise.
This season, we got to play twice before the suspension. A 1-1 draw, which seems a long, long time ago now, back in August last year, and then a victory for Fleetwood at Adams Park in what was quite a fiery game. Going back to that one in Highbury, I was up there for that one, and you were there too. I mean, that was... Wycombe were gutted at the end of that game because to concede so late on. But it was a very tight game, wasn't it?
It was, and I think we came away feeling lucky to get something out of it as well, the way it had gone. Obviously, it was a goalkeeping error which led to the goal as well. I think he drops the ball, and when you've got a striker like Paddy Madden on the pitch, they capitalise on that, don't they? And I think that's what happened. Paddy's made a career out of that, hasn't he? Johnny on the spot, if there's a chance, he'll snap it up.
Yeah, he certainly does. And I mean, and Ched Evans alongside him as well. There's plenty of goals, but there's some fantastic players in the Fleetwood side. I think Wycombe fans have already pinpointed the ones they're worried about. But for you, who have been the shining lights this season? Well,
I think the January transfer business has actually transformed the side, because I think the summer business maybe wasn't quite as successful as we'd hoped. The standout loanee we brought in summer was Jordan Rossiter, who picks up an injury on loan from Rangers, and he's gone back. There's a little bit of confusion about whether he'll be able to play now because he's recovered from an injury, but I believe he went back, so I don't think he will be playing. But in January, we brought in players like Barry Mackay, who's come in from Swansea, who looks the real deal. He looks like an excellent prospect. I think he got the assist for the goal at Adams Park. And I have to say, Glenn Whelan, 37 years old, has come in and been unbelievable.
There seemed to be, I've been sort of looking at across social media, when he came in, there seemed to be a bit of a split about, do we really need someone of this age to come down? Yeah. But like you say, he's been fantastic, hasn't he?
Yeah, and hands up high was one of the most vocal. Why the hell are we signing a 37-year-old past it midfielder? But I'm happy to hold my hands up and admit to being wrong on that, because he's been a revelation.
And experience as well, and I would imagine excellent mental strength, having had such a fantastic and long career. And looking at these games, we've said this to all the other fans on this podcast as well, it's going to be the characters and the mental strength that possibly will carry teams through these games. Yeah,
I think so. And I certainly, I'm really pleased to be going into the playoffs with a strike partnership, as you said, like Ched Evans and Paddy Madden, because Ched in particular, he can be invisible through games, and just the one chance and he'll stick it in the net. And I think when you've got a striker like that, then, that's a good thing to have. Obviously, you've got Akinfenwa, who does a similar sort of a job, I guess.
Yeah, Akinfenwa Suter is going to be a big battle, I think, in these two games. Who do you think is going to come out on top in that one?
Well, I'd like to say Suter, and I'm going to keep my fingers crossed that I'm correct, but yeah, you're right. A physical battle is what's in store there, I think.
And in terms of what Joey Barton's done this season, the whole country sort of raised an eyebrow when he was given his chance, but you have to say he's certainly delivered, hasn't he, as a manager?
Yeah, he seems to be doing a good job. Again, I'll hold my hands up and say I am quite anti-Barton. As you can imagine, I'm sure he just split fan bases. So I'm not his biggest fan, but you can't argue with where we are right now. I think as a manager, he's certainly doing the job. He seems to have the team fired up. I do think he lets himself down far too often. But as a manager and where we are in the league at the moment and what we're doing, you can't fault him, can you?
That's your opinion as well. Is that sort of split across the Fleetwood Town fan base that, Joey Barton, even now, a time in, 18 months into the job and delivering results, there's still a few people that are concerned about Joey Barton, the character? Oh,
absolutely, yeah. And I think it's less than it was. Obviously, football fans are quite a fickle breed, aren't they? And results change minds. But yeah, there's certainly, I would say when he got the job, it was very much a 50-50 split. And I think there's still a small minority. But, on match days, forget Joey Barton, the character. It's all about Fleetwood Town, the team, isn't it? So I don't want to get too into that. Obviously, whenever you talk about Fleetwood Town, Joey Barton's name crops up because that's the nature of the beast. But at the moment, for me, certainly, it's all about the football. And we're potentially 3 games away from the championship, which is exciting.
Yeah, let's talk about that because both clubs, Wycombe and Fleetwood, one of them will be in the final. Both clubs with rich non-league histories, really. I mean, Wycombe have been in the league a little bit longer, but Fleetwood Town, you only have to go back 2007, 2008 promotion from the Northern Premier, and it's been upwards ever since, hasn't it? So one of these teams has got a one-game shot of being in the 5th biggest football league in the world, which is kind of insane when you think about it.
It is absolutely insane. And again, if you'd have told us that in 2008, 2009, when we'd just got up to I was really excited when we got promoted to the Conference North and you started seeing your name crop up on the bottom of Soccer Saturday and things like that. If you'd have said then we're a game away from the championship, we'd have laughed at you probably. But that's Fleetwood Town. That's the journey we're on. We look up and not down. And I genuinely believe even if we can't go up this year, we will have some time in the championship. And who knows, we get laughed at, our fan base is derided, but we just keep disproving the doubters.
We can get this to a certain extent even now, even like since the mid-90s, since they entered the league. But, a lot of so-called bigger clubs do look down their nose at us. And from what you just said, I'm guessing you appreciate that too.
Oh, 100%. And you get it all the time. And I think some of the bigger clubs, the so-called bigger clubs, the bigger fan bases is all it is really, think they've got some sort of divine right to be in the upper divisions. And, I don't see why they have. I don't think fans win football matches. I think we've proved that again and again and again. And also, if you look at Fleetwood Town, the geography of Fleetwood Town, we're a tiny town on a peninsula. There's water on 3 sides and we've got 27,000 people in the town. So, we'll take, we won't take anyone because of COVID, but even under normal circumstances, if we got to Wembley, we'd only take 5,000 or 6,000 down. But that's about 25% of the town going down. It's insane when you look at it like that.
The neighbours must be looking a little bit jealously up the road from Blackpool.
Yeah, we are. I'd be lying if I said we weren't enjoying that.
I'm sure if Fleetwood were to make it to Wembley, Pompey or Oxford would have probably sold their allocation. Having it behind closed doors is another benefit, I would suggest.
I think so, and I think for both Fleetwood and Wycombe, I think the behind closed doors is less of an impact than it would be for a club like Pompey. We used to play in front of massive crowds. We're both quite small clubs that our fans are used to. We'll regularly go to away days and take 50 or 60 people with us. So our players are used to playing without that support and in that intimidating atmosphere. So I think it will affect the big clubs more than it affects the clubs of our size.
With the current situation, what's the sort of the message or narrative coming from the club? This is obviously a wonderful opportunity for both Fleetwood and Wycombe, but I'm guessing the chairman wasn't sort of banking on getting promoted this season, was he? Or does he really feel the need now that to get the money in the bank, it has to happen?
No, absolutely. I think he's been talking about promotion all season. That's 100%. That's been his target. I think he wanted it last season. He was disappointed that we finished mid-table. The chairman is the driving force behind the club, and he looks up. And I think people laugh at him sometimes for that. But, I've said before, I think we'll get championship, if not this season, in the coming years. I think when we leave this division, it will be up and not down. Although, saying that, after last time we got to the playoffs, we did have a bit of a scare the following season. So,
But it's the great unknown as well, what comes after the playoffs. Obviously, we're going to focus on the playoffs, but football in general, we don't really understand how it's going to work, and fans and stuff like that. I mean, Fleetwood, I've been to the stadium, and it's a fantastic little ground, and it's almost the head office as well of your chairman's company. Is it a concern for fans that your money comes from sort of just the one source and a small fan base?
I don't think it is so much. I think, obviously, it's an argument which does get brought up, the money aspect of Fleetwood Town buying the way to where they are. And I think we can't get away from that. Certainly in the non-league days, we bought leagues. That was the kind of business model, I think Pilly will freely admit that as well, the chairman. I think his business model was buy the best players in that league and you'll get out the league. And I think that's the business model that we had. But now we're in the Football League, certainly at League One level and touchwood Championship level, we are 100% small fish. You look at our chairman and he owns an electric company. He's not an Arabian sheikh. The money that he puts in is good. But I believe he's invested that wisely. He's built into the infrastructure of the club. He doesn't spend a fortune on transfers. You look at our transfer history, most of it's loan deals and free transfers. I think you look at the wage budget, it pales into insignificance compared to half of the clubs in the league. But then he has invested big time in the infrastructure. We've got a new training complex, which is as good as anyone's. He's invested in the youth setup at Fleetwood. So I do think a lot of the money he's spent has been building for the future. And if he was to walk away, then, obviously that would be a blow. But I think you listen to the man's passion. I don't see him going anywhere for the time being, certainly. So I guess it would be a bit of a concern going forwards, but I certainly don't see us dropping to where we were when he took over.
Right, let's get down to brass tacks of these games. What do you reckon is going to happen? Are you confident?
Do you know, it's such a weird feeling, isn't it, going into these games, because you're going into games that you can't go to, massive games in the club's history, and you feel like you want to be there. Even in the if we go up to the Championship and we start behind closed doors, it's going to be horrible. But as you said, I think Fleetwood Wycombe games are always tight anyway. I can't remember playing a big win from either side. It's always 1-0s, 1-1s, 0-0s. So I think they'll be tight. And I think it'll probably be decided on, hopefully, a moment of brilliance rather than a mistake. But again, that could go either way, couldn't it? So it's an exciting time. I think both teams will go into it feeling like, well, I don't see why either team would go into it not feeling confident. We're certainly going in feeling confident. We feel we've got the team to do it. I think we've got players coming back. People like Kyle Dempsey, who was out injured before the lockdown, should be back raring to go now. He's a key part of our midfield. So yeah, we're feeling confident, but I think it's a cautious optimism at the moment.
We talked about Glenn Whelan earlier, but I've said this to the other fans on this podcast as well of the other teams. It's going to be strong mental character and strength. Other than Whelan, have you got some obvious leaders in the side that can maybe pull things out of a tough situation?
I think we've got a nice mix, actually, of youth and experience. I think we had certainly last season, we had a really young side, and I think that cost us, and we have got a few more experienced heads. I think you look at people like Ched Evans, who tends to captain the side. He's been there, done it, hasn't he? I know his history, again, is a little bit clouded, although his conviction was overturned in a court of law, so he's no less right to be than anybody else now. But he's been there and done it all. Paddy Madden's been everywhere. He knows the game, so that you've got that leadership from up front. Again, the midfield, Kyle Dempsey, he's only a young lad, but he's been around first-team football at this level for a long time. Goalkeeper, I think, has been there, done it all. The back line is quite inexperienced, though, with the probable exception of Danny Andrew at left back. So I guess that's a worry, but the youngsters have looked strong as well. So,
and what about the fact that this long period of no football at all? I mean, we alluded to the form that Fleetwood had. I think they beat Ipswich down at Portman Road. Fantastic result. Is that lack of momentum now? Is that a concern?
It's a concern, definitely. I think if you look at the run of games that come out of, I genuinely, and again, I'm not going to lie, I thought you look at our February, March fixtures and I thought, well, we're in the playoff place and we'll drop out of that. But we came out of a run of, I've got them in front of me here, Doncaster, Wimbledon, Wycombe, Peterborough, Pompey, Sunderland, Ipswich, Blackpool, Pompey again. That's a horrific run. And we came out of that run unbeaten with 6 wins and 3 draws. And we're thinking, we're going up here because the running doesn't look anywhere near as tricky as the running that we would have had. So I think we were genuinely feeling that promotion push. But yeah, as you say, it's been a long time, and it's been a long time for everyone. So I guess the form that you were in counts for nothing now, does it? It's all about that 2 games and what can happen.
Indeed, it does. They always say the playoffs are a lottery, but this one certainly seems to be the case. If you were to get past the mighty Chairboys in the semi-final, who do you fancy in the final? Who would you rather play out of Pompey and Oxford?
Well, I'll tell you, we've got such a good record against Oxford. They've never beaten us. And whenever we've played Oxford in the league, they've looked bang average. We must just be their bogey team, because I look at the results and they get good results. They're obviously a good team, but we just seem to hammer them every time we play them. So on that, you'd say Oxford. However, those curses all end somewhere, don't they? And a playoff final would be a horrific place to lose that run. So, whoever you get in the final, if you're at Wembley and you're in a playoff final, it's going to be a massive game, whoever you get, I think. So I don't think it makes an awful lot of difference. You have to beat what's put in front of you.
Spoken like a proper pundit there, the old on the fence, and fantastic.
Yeah, definitely stay on the fence, yeah.
It's fantastic to talk to you, Martin, as well. And also, it's fantastic to have some competitive football back and be involved as well. So we wish you all the best for the semi-finals. And we'll see what happens.
Absolutely. And whatever happens, I'd like the winner of our semi to go up. So that's all I'll say. I'd love that to be us. But if it's not, then good luck to yourselves as well.
On the other side of the draw are Pompey and Oxford, and because we are nothing but thorough on Ringing the Blues, I've checked in with these guys too. Dave Bowers is a top bloke and a long-standing Portsmouth fan. Is he pleased that football is back?
No.
Fair enough.
It's just a personal thing. I think the fan base down here is pretty split. I think oldies like me realise that whatever happens this season is going to have an asterisk by the side of it. I think youngsters are just desperate to see Pompey play in the playoffs and get to Wembley and hopefully get to the Championship. But the oldies can look at the fact that we've never won a single playoff match in our history.
Wow, I wasn't aware of that. I knew there was issues with Oxford in big games, but you've never won a playoff game in the club's history. That's quite a daunting prospect, isn't it?
It is, and I'm hoping nobody's told the players.
Well, hopefully none of them will be listening to this from a Pompey point of view. Looking back at the season, it was quite to coin the phrase, a season of 2 halves pretty much. I remember being at Adams Park when Wycombe beat Pompey with a late penalty, and the magnificent travelling support from Pompey. The message from the away end that day was very much no jacket required, but the form turned around, didn't it? And I think there must be a bit of regret now with Pompey looking at the league that it wasn't being able to be played out, because surely you'd have fancied getting into that top 2.
Well, yeah, there's 2 perspectives on it. One, as you say, that Pompey could have clawed their way into the top 2. I think Coventry are pretty much gone. I think we were all battling for second place, and who knows what was going to happen. I mean, the form leading into that, if we'd carried on playing, I think Oxford would have got it, because I think they'd won 5 on the bounce or something daft going into that. But secondly, Pompey to me looked leggy. They've done this thing again where they've gone to the final of the I don't know what you want to call it now, the Thing Trophy. I can't bring myself to put the sponsor's name in front of it because it's bloody ridiculous. But they've gone to Wembley in that, but it's a long road, and they did all right in the FA Cup as well. So they've got all these games behind them. They were looking very leggy. I saw them at Peterborough just before we went into lockdown, and they were very poor. Very poor. And we walked away from that saying this team is not going to get into the top 2 in any way, shape or form. Now, because they were looking leggy, they've had this big break. So on a positive slant, they may well come back in a much better shape. Certainly the people with injuries will be back as well. So that's a positive slant on it. As the season overall, as you said, yeah, very much early on, it was poor results, and the majority, I would say, of fans wanted a change of manager. The supporter base has been split on Kenny Jackett for some time now, And it still is, even though they've clawed their way back up the table. I think it's fair to say it's pretty split on the manager. The problem with him has been his style of football that he prefers. Before Jacket, of course, we had Paul Cook, as you will remember. And Paul Cook's philosophy was very much based on possession football and attacking football, and it was very entertaining. Jacket's football isn't, and I think if you're winning, you can possibly ignore the fact that you're not being entertained. But when you're losing, then it obviously that comes to the fore, and emotions take over. I mean, Pompey's got a decent support, as you know, but it can be impatient as well. I mean, even in Paul Cook's days, I can remember them being 4-1 up at home and being booed because they weren't killing a team off who had 9 men. So, that's how impatient the fan base can be. But football fans are fickle. If Jacket gets us up, he'll get the freedom of the city.
Let's talk about the fans, because obviously they won't be at these games. And Fratton Park, I've been there when it's been rocking, and the atmosphere is wonderful, and it is the old phrase, the 12th man sometimes. But picking up on what you're saying then, perhaps the pressure will be lifted. Do you think the players will be able to respond positively, or will they miss those fans on that game against Oxford?
Both, I think. I think they will miss the fans, but it's been a topic of conversation on social media this week, actually, about the lack of fans and the fact that it may be a positive for Pompey, because some of the players have definitely wilted under pressure from the fans, and this may give them the chance to just go out and express themselves, try things, knowing that then the fans aren't going to turn on them. And it's a shame to have to say that. Some people react well playing in front of 18,000 screaming fans. Others tend to wilt, and I'm just wondering whether we will see certain players come to the fore in these games. Obviously, statistics show from around the countries, particularly in Germany, obviously is the one we look at for stats, is that you really lose home advantage when there's no fans.
Yeah, I've been seeing that as well, and the ball's in play a lot longer too, which I think a lot of Wycombe fans are quite worried about. Let's
you get more value for your money though, don't you, as a Wycombe fan? You get 2 hours every week. That's great.
I've been trying to put in for overtime for years now at 3 counties, and it's all been ignored. I think I'm doing at least 15 minutes a week extra, but there we are.
I remember.
Let's play devil's advocate here. If you were to get past Oxford, and you'd have to win a playoff game to do that, so it's a big ask, but in the final, Fleetwood or Wycombe, I mean, who would you prefer?
You're going to hate me for saying this, but it wouldn't matter to us. I think just to win a playoff game would be a relief. If we got to the final, we'd face whoever we could. I mean, there's no fans going to be there, so if we looked at it from a Wycombe perspective, if we played Wycombe, the game would last longer, so we'd have more of the Wembley experience. If we played Fleetwood, there'd be someone to yell at on the manager's bench. So, but we're not going to be there anyway, so it wouldn't matter to us. I think if Pompey can get over this problem with not winning a playoff game, I think the players themselves will go to Wembley quite confident of whoever they play. But I'm sitting here thinking if we win a playoff game, and that's the big if, really.
Surely the circumstances, as awful as they are, it's unprecedented, that word that's been used a million times in the last 3 months. But surely that will play into these hands, that we can say, yeah, never won a playoff game, but these are extremely different circumstances and will allow everyone just to kind of wipe the slate clean.
I hope so. I hope you're right, because it's a millstone around the guy's neck. I mean, and until we went down to League Two, we'd only ever been in one playoff, but we've failed signally in every one of them.
With these 3 games coming up, you talked about the players that you've got. I mean, the manager's experienced. Who are the players that you look to in that squad? We're looking at mental strength here rather than sort of trickery. We know there's some real talent in the squad. Who are the pillars of that team you think are going to pull them through?
My problem with Pompey has been that there aren't enough leaders on the pitch. Since we got promoted to League One and lost Michael Doyle, we've not really had that big man out on the field who's 100% heart and fight. Tom Naylor is one that might stand out. Christian Burgess is another. But I would like to see somebody who was more of a natural leader, not necessarily the captain, just somebody that you turn to when things are a little bit difficult, and you can see that he's getting everybody up and leading them the way. And there's an opportunity there, really, I think, for somebody to stand up and become that person.
Yeah, I think these games are going to show that the mental strength, I think, of the players will probably win the day, I think. Looking at the League Two semis that I watched the other day, not great games, but they were ground out results, and it's going to be perhaps that. Have Pompey been able to do that this season? I mean, you said under Jacket the style of football's not been so free-flowing. Does it mean that there's an ability to grind out the result?
Well, there has been in the second half of the season, yes, and maybe that might play into Pompey's hands, because there have been games where you watch games and said, how the hell have they come away with a win there? Or, how they managed to scrape a draw out of that. And obviously grinding out points is a great way to win promotion. It's not entertaining, but you need to do it on occasions. So, yeah, but maybe that will help Pompey.
Dave, we wish you all the best in the semi-final against Oxford.
No, you don't. Because you'd love to play Oxford at Wembley.
I don't know. To be honest with you, I'm not sure who would want to play. I think we'd just be happy to be there, to be honest. We're happy to be in the playoffs, let's be honest. But yeah, I'm going to say this to everyone I speak to on this podcast. We wish you all the very best in your semi-final.
Thanks very much, Phil. It's lovely to speak to you.
Well, that just leaves the third side of this particular story, and it's our old friends from up the road, Oxford United. My good friend Joel Harrison is an Oxford United fanatic, but how does he feel about this playoff situation?
It's just very strange. I don't know whether to be happy about it, to be obviously not sad being in the playoffs, but where we've ended up it's our best league position for a generation, really, for 25 years, and you can't complain at that. I am a bit gutted, though, because going into the playoffs, or going into the ending of the season, as it was, suspending of the season, we were 5 games unbeaten. We were on a really great run. We'd really found a rhythm. We did have a couple of key injuries, and a couple of the players were looking tired. But I feel we could have pushed on to maybe one of the automatic promotion positions. So it's a little bittersweet, but I'll take the playoffs.
It seems to be the message from all teams involved in the playoffs is that they all said, well, we were going for that top 2. Oxford, you were the form horse. Let's make no bones about it. 5 consecutive wins going into the suspension, and just 2 points behind Rotherham. I was looking back a bit. I dug a bit further back, and it looked to me like the FA Cup run has perhaps cost you an automatic promotion place, because the form after that Newcastle replay, that 3 defeats in a week, that's cost you, hasn't it?
It has. I think even going into that Newcastle replay, if I remember rightly, we were playing MK Dons away. And you could almost see from the players going into that, and I know the management team vehemently denied this, but they didn't quite have 100% in the tank going into that. I think for fear of not wanting to miss out on the game against Newcastle. So yeah, and the other thing on top of that, Phil, is that just the sheer number of games that we've played, and I think last season was bad enough for us, where we played well over 60 games. And I think this season we were looking sort of staring down the barrel of that as well. Obviously, as a club, you don't have. We've got probably more resources than most in our league, but equally, we don't have unlimited resources, and it was starting to show and tear around the edges a little bit, despite the kind of galloping that we've got going. And it's going to be fascinating to see how some of our players will respond to having had such a long and hopefully decent rest.
Yeah, in the form, you can look at it 2 ways, because the form was fantastic. It's a bit like when you finish a half really strongly and then the half-time whistle goes and you think, I wanted to continue. But with Oxford, this 100-day gap, you could say, yeah, they'll be rested, but also massive opportunity for the momentum may well have gone.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, a lot of footballers, especially those that play up the front of the pitch, it's all about momentum. It's all about confidence. At the back of the pitch, back end of the business end of the pitch, if you like, it's about consistency. And, with our back four and goalkeeper, we were getting some real consistency there. Elliot Moore had come in, was playing really well. We got him from Leicester in the close season, had really grown into that role of starting to play first team football. In fact, he'd started the last 5 games that we we had won. Rob Dickey was doing really well, got really settled wing backs as well, and it was all looking very good. And then up front, we were having a few issues. Obviously, Jamie Mackey, who you all know very well, was getting a little bit tired, and Jamie Mackey's role, I think any Oxford fan would agree, and apologies if he's listening to this, but isn't really to score goals. He's more of a psychological weapon. And I think it's going to be fascinating to see how he comes back sort of renewed with a bit more energy, because part of his job is to sort of grind the gears of the opposition defence and see how our other attacking players, and we've got a lot going on in midfield. Players like James Henry and Marcus Brown, who's on loan from West Ham, who are really very, very talented. And a lot of our goals haven't necessarily, till we got Matty Taylor, local lad, but came on loan from Bristol City, haven't really been coming from our strike force. They've been coming from the midfield. So it's going to be interesting to see how that balance stays, that dynamic stays. So, yeah.
It's interesting because I think after the game at Sam, I think a few Wycombe fans were calling Jamie Mackey a bit of a weapon as well, actually.
You misheard them there, Phil.
Let's talk about that game, because, I mean, we'll skip ahead to a potential final. Obviously, lots of football to be played before then. If Wycombe and Oxford were to be in the final at Wembley, that game at Sam was very spicy, wasn't it? It'll be an interesting encounter if it was to happen again at Wembley.
Yeah, I think both teams, Wycombe and Portsmouth, are teams that we've got something against in terms of there's a bit of an emotional history. We played Portsmouth, we'll get onto that in a minute, I'm sure, but we played Portsmouth recently and had some fascinating on and off the field kind of ruckuses with the players. And Wycombe, yes, look, you're not Swindon, and that's to your benefit, that's to your credit. But there's still a bit of a local derby. I live in Windsor, so I drive pretty much past the ground whenever I'm going back to the Qassam, and it's about as close as it could be. I think you're probably our closest rival in terms of distance, centre circle to centre circle. Probably Reading coming up second and Swindon coming up third. But you guys are never going to be Swindon, but there's always going to be something there, which is nice, something local there.
It was a fascinating game because there was this sort of premeditated discussion between Mousinho and Mackey to get Akinfenwa sent off, and it was a plan exceptionally well executed, and much was said about that. But there's going to be unfinished business on both sides here, going into what could be an absolutely monumental game for both clubs. We'll talk about the finances involved in that final as well. If are Oxford, is it do or die? Do they have to go up this season because of money?
Well, I've been reading some bits recently from people who have good insider knowledge on the club and the club finances. And since our new owners took over, there have been some interesting developments on that side in terms of where they've located the core element, the actual sort of legality and core element of the business, which is now, I believe, is in Singapore. So that makes it slightly harder for some of our fans who have the ability to dig into accounts to dig into accounts. But there seems to be a general feeling that the club is being run on a relatively sustainable footing. Part of that coming from excellent player development and scouting by Carl Robinson, and you've got to give him credit for that. You look at a player like Tariq Fosu, who was languishing away with no kind of real halo around his head at Charlton, and we got him in, and we turned him around in 8 months to be a player that we made a profit on. Sold him on to Brentford, and he played yesterday. They got 3 points. So it's little gems like that clubs like Oxford are always going to need to have in lieu of a kind of very wealthy philanthropist, if you will. So yeah, I don't think it's going to be interesting, Phil, seeing how any club comes out of this 100-day gap and then what the future holds from a financial footing. Oxford, I think, are in a much better position than a lot of people. We've got untapped resources in terms of the brand of the city is a global brand. I think you go anywhere in the world and they will have heard of Oxford. It's got a reputation, therefore, that comes with that because of the university and what have you. And why people haven't been able to tap into that and turn that into something that's a little bit more globally renowned. I mean, if you can go to Singapore and see a kid in a Leicester City shirt, I don't see why you can't go to Singapore and see a kid in an Oxford United shirt in the long run. So I think there's a huge opportunity there. And I think the new owners have got a balance and a handle on developing property around the stadium, and it might not be the Kassam. We might be looking at a new stadium, which would be fascinating for our supporters, because I don't think anybody really likes the Kassam, and I don't think anybody would be sad to see the back of that, even though it would mean a third move in 30 years or in 20 years to somewhere new. But I think they've got a good handle on the fact that soccer on the pitch isn't the be-all and end-all of running a football business.
We heard from Dave Bowers, a Pompey fan, earlier on the podcast, and staggering statistic that Pompey have never won a playoff game. Music to your ears, surely.
I had never heard that, Phil. So that is, wonderful, but it doesn't mean you can get complacent about that. We're into this unknown situation of how are they going to respond. They've had 2 COVID positive tests. A couple of days before, we had 2 COVID positive tests. You don't know who those players are. Are they fringe players? Are they even members of staff? Or, the worry for me would be it's a Matty Taylor or even our goalkeeper. I think Simon Eastwood, to lose him for an extended period of training would be a disaster, because we don't really, like most clubs in this league, we don't really have a replacement goalkeeper. So it's fascinating to see how both teams are going to play out. And for me, the really big unknown is that Pompey, I think we've all been there, fantastic ground to go and visit as a supporter. It's tight, it's old school. It kind of reminds me of Goodison. Goodison and Pompey are 2 similar grounds, Fratton Park and Goodison Park. But it's tight and it's a bit aggressive, and it's a very emotional place to go and play football. So are we going to get what people are talking about now as the new away advantage of going to play there with no supporters in the stadium? Who knows?
It's going to be fascinating. Oxford, looking at the 4 teams in the playoffs, I think play the best, or say the best, but the most attractive brand of football. That's a whole other podcast, whether it's the best or not, but it's a very attractive passing game. Decent players. Brannigan, I think, was one of the best players in the division. Looking at how the Bundesliga have operated, and also the League 2 semi-finals last week, the more physical players were perhaps in better shape or performing better in the early games. Is that a worry?
I think it's a benefit to us. What's really interesting is Alex Gorin, who for me is the unsung hero of the Oxford United squad this season. He is integral to the team, and he sort of protects our defence, and he gets attacks going. He's very much the win the ball in the middle of the park and pass it sideways kind of player, which doesn't sound like a glamorous position, but is absolutely the engine room of what we do. And he was missing out on a couple of games due to yellow cards and sort of build-ups, and he was just looking a bit tired. And more than, say, a vintage player, if you like Jamie Mackie, I would say someone like Alex Gorin is going to have benefited from the break more, and he's a physical player. And I do think he's the sort of player that other teams will gang up on and try and get booked and everything else. And without the sound of the crowd there, I think he could get a bit of a fairer look in. I think he's going to be a massive player for us in these 2 games.
Yeah, it's a similar question I asked to Dave, because obviously the skillful attacking players, of which you have many excellent options, they're the ones that catch the eye. But in these playoffs, it could be the mental battle, mental strength and leadership. Who are the players that display those hallmarks in the Oxford team?
I think we've got a really good balance on that side. And there's one guy who stands out in particular, is our left back, Josh Ruffles. And Josh is a local lad. He grew up in Kidlington, but he joined Coventry's academy when Coventry had a 5-star academy before it went a bit tits up for them. And he then left there, joined us, and he is one of the sort of most consistent performers. They call him Mr. Oxford. And is he the best player in the team? No. Is he the most glamorous player in the team? No. But is he a leader? Yes. Does he embody every single one of the supporters that would be sitting in the blue stands at Kassam on the pitch? Yes, he does. And I think that's what you need, is a little bit of locality, people who understand the passion of the crowd, who understand the passion of the moment, and who understand the passion of the club, and can bring that onto the pitch in lieu of the supporters in the stands. And I think he's one of those players where you just go, yeah, great. We've got some local kids, local people on the pitch who can represent for us when we're not there in the stands.
Okay, right. So you've got past Pompey in the 2-legged semi. Who do you want in the final, Fleetwood or Wycombe, given the choice?
I really don't want Fleetwood. And that's no disrespect to Wycombe, but I said to a friend of mine up in Glasgow, who's a big football supporter up there, and he was looking at doing his pre-season little sort of flutter on who might win each league. And I said, have an outside bet on Fleetwood because they've made some great signings. I think they've got great balance in the squad. They've got a bit of money there. Joey Barton is one of those completely, talk about unknown quantities, real unknown quantity. Obviously has a reputation for being a bit of a hothead, but when you're trying to manage a group of millennials, and the older I get, the more that I forget that any manager, and Carl Robinson's a great example of this, any manager who looks after a team of lads going out onto the pitch is looking after a team of 17 to 33-year-olds. And that's like a night out in Ibiza. And sometimes that takes a grandfather figure, your Woys and everybody else. And sometimes, it's not bad to have a leader within that group. And I think Carl Robinson at his age, under 40, embodies a bit of that. And I think Joey Barton embodies a bit of that. I think, you've seen that in the leadership team at Wycombe as well. It's not about having a grandfather figure in Gareth Ainsworth. It's about having a lad within the lads. And it's fascinating to see Joey Barton take on that role and how he's motivated those players. That worries me. They worry me as a team. I think they're the underdog that people aren't talking about within this group of four. I think it's going to be tough for Wycombe to get past them, but I don't want to play them. I'd much rather play Wycombe, not because it's an easier game. I think it's going to be a very difficult game, whoever we play in the final, but just because I think Fleetwood are such an unknown, underrated, quiet little, nasty little team in that respect to play.
Interesting. And final question, it'd be remiss of me not to do this. The semi-final, will you be peering over the fence or watching at home?
Well, I bought, they're doing this thing called Fans at the Game, where you send in a photo of yourself using this app and they do a cardboard cutout of you. So I bought one of those, 25 quid, to have a cardboard cutout of myself at the game. And there's points in life when you realise you might be a little bit mental. And when I pressed the pay button on that, I thought, am I a little bit mad? Yeah, I probably am. But so I'll have some representative in the ground in some form. But I would be tempted to turn up and peer over the fence. But I'm far too respectful of government guidelines, Phil. So I'll be staying at home watching it on the telly with a few whiskies in my hand, I think.
We're all aware of these cardboard cutouts. I think there has been a rumour perhaps there might be a few Barry Fries at the Wycombe game, but we're not sure.
Brilliant stuff. Amazing.
Joel, thank you very much for your time, and in time-honoured tradition on this podcast, we wish you all the very best in your semi-final.
And Phil, I'd like to pass that on to all of the Wycombe fans listening. They're a local team to me. I live in Windsor, and I really do wish you the best. And if we meet you in the final, if you meet Portsmouth in the final, I wish you the best of luck. But best of luck against Fleetwood. I really hope it works for you. So, the playoff games are all set for the 3rd and 6th of July. I'll be at Fleetwood and Adams Park providing full match commentary for BBC 3CR on 98 FM and iFollow. Right, that's your lot for this episode. Many thanks to Jason McCarthy, Martin Crane, Dave Bowers and Joel Harrison. Football is back and Wycombe are 2 games away from Wembley. Take care and come on you Blues.
It's a disgrace. Qué desgracia.